Ladies and gentlemen, the left's October surprise has arrived, and right on cue, Jack Smith, the DOJ's attack dog, has unleashed a 165-page motion filed with more lies and distortions than a CNN broadcast. But here's what they don't want you to know. This is not about justice. It's about influencing the upcoming election. Tonight, we're going to break down this desperate October surprise, expose the real motives behind it, and show you why it is nothing more than a last-ditch effort to stop Trump's momentum. Now, check this out. Are you listening? While Jack Smith launches his October surprise, our national debt has surpassed $35 trillion. The U.S. is borrowing to pay interest, digging a deeper hole. Meanwhile, gold surpassed $2,400 an ounce. Smart money is shifting to gold and silver. If you have funds in a low-interest account or 401k IRA, call Global Gold Investments, America's leading conservative precious metals dealer. Get their free 2024 Protect Your Wealth and Retirement Guide. Call 888, that's the number on the screen, 888-700-4148. Mention Next News for 5-star treatment and a complimentary portfolio analysis. Visit IRAGoldproof.com, link below. Remember, if you don't have gold, you don't have wealth. Now, President Trump, his campaign destroyed Kamala Harris' Gestapo special counsel Jack Smith today. This is election interference by the Harris-Biden regime. Let's take a look.
Material that has now been made public right now. This is Stephen Chung, the Trump campaign spokesman, saying that the release of the falsehood-ridden, unconstitutional J6, referring to January 6th brief, immediately following Tim Walz's disastrous debate performance is another obvious attempt by the Harris-Biden regime to undermine American democracy and interfere in this election. Deranged Jack Smith, again quoting from the spokesman in Washington, D.C., radical Democrats are hell-bent on weaponizing the Justice Department in an attempt to cling to power. President Trump is dominating, and the radical Democrats throughout the deep state are freaking out. The entire case is a partisan, unconstitutional witch hunt that should be dismissed entirely, together with all of the remaining Democrat hoaxes. This again from a Trump campaign spokesman. Of course, all of this back and forth on redacted material that has now been made public from Jack Smith's investigation, born of a Supreme Court decision that said essentially actions by a president in office, you can't touch them.
No, you can't. And Trump on Truth Social going ballistic. Democrats are weaponizing the Justice Department against me because they know I am winning. They're desperate to prop up their failing candidate, Kamala Harris. The DOJ pushed out this latest hit job today because J.D. Vance humiliated Tim Walz last night in the debate. The release of this falsehood-written unconstitutional J6 brief immediately following Tim Walz's disastrous debate performance, 33 days before the most important election in history of our country, is another obvious attempt by the Harris-Biden regime to undermine the election. 60 days prior to an election, the Department of Injustice is supposed to do absolutely nothing that would taint or interfere with the case. They disobeyed their own rule in favor of complete and total election interference. I did nothing wrong. This case is a scam. Trump continuing. Whether now the fully debunked Russia, Iran, Ukraine, 51 intelligence agents spying on my campaign, impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, or any other scams, this illegal action taken by the Justice Department, including their raid on Mar-a-Lago for a case that was dismissed, will end just like all the others with complete victory for President Trump. Make America great again. Special counsel Jack Smith's major filing in Trump's 2020 election case, unsealed on Wednesday by Judge Tanya Chutkan, has bombshell after bombshell, according to CBS News.
Your big takeaways from this filing?
Well, my number one takeaway is that it was actually uncovered. Trump has tried very hard to keep all this information from seeing the light of day. Now it is out. The cat's out of the bag. He can't try to appeal or keep it from being there. So it has an immediate impact as sort of an October surprise in the election. In the substance, we have all kinds of new evidence, bombshells, really a fusillade of shock and awe from Smith, starting with Trump statements. He wasn't in front of the grand jury, but people were who heard him. They've given many of his statements. They're all going to be admissible at trial. They show he knew just what was going on. Second, Mike Pence statements. Remember, he wasn't there on January 6th, but he testified to the grand jury, and he lays out really a chilling campaign by Trump to make him try to break the law. And finally, on the Pence point, two more things, actually, Major. We know that when Trump, and the evidence is there on page 75, when Trump was saying to the crowd, Mike Pence has to do the right thing, he already knew Pence had decided against it, meaning he knew the crowd would be completely riled up when they found out that Pence wasn't going to do it. Finally, the issue on law. Does Pence evidence come in? The argument here by the special counsel on page 90 of the brief is it should come in because Pence is basically acting in this exchange as the head of the Senate rather than as Trump's sort of second in command. And that's the argument why it fits in the Supreme Court's rubric.
So the left's having a field day because of this major unsealing, and couldn't come at a worse time, of course, right before the election. October surprise, perhaps. 160 what pages? The left is going to go through this line by line, and they're going to take out sound bites, and they're going to make headlines for this for days and weeks in an effort to continue to smear Trump over 2020 and January 6th, which was an inside job any way you slice it. And of course, the left on Twitter, Ed Krasenstein. Wow, no one can vote for Trump after this. See, these are the narratives that are being developed right now. The new Jack Smith documents released by Judge Chutkan really say that leading up to the violence of January 6th, the Trump campaign literally said, make them riot and do it. There's no saving Trump's chances after this. Listen to this.
When it appeared as though the events on January 6th were leading to be a violent effort to overthrow the election results, one of Trump's campaign employees, also an agent and a co-conspirator of Trump, literally said, quote, make them riot. Do it.
How much soy does that guy have in his system? And the commenter says, Ed is conveniently cutting off the prior paragraph where Jack Smith acknowledges the comment was made on November 4th in a text message between campaign staffers and is not even related to January 6th. You see how they're taking this out of context already to try to smear Trump? Several high-profile individuals have wrongly attributed the make them riot quote to Trump. However, the Jack Smith filing clarifies it was actually campaign person 5 and not Trump. Make sure you pay close attention who all are pushing the deliberate disinformation that Trump said make them riot. Jack Smith's brief clearly states it was not Trump, but P5. The new allegations by illegally appointed special counsel Jack Smith are tired and laughable. Nobody cares. Nobody sees your witch hunt as credible. Trump is winning and you can't stop it. It's somewhat comical. This is all the left has left. Lee Zeldin says the Biden-Harris DOJ and Jack Smith are further ramping up an extremely aggressive effort to weaponize the justice system to interfere in the election. The left will try to kill President Trump, imprison him, bankrupt him, and Americans should not tolerate any of it. And listen, watch this. This guy, Jeff Clark, went over the whole thing. He says, as I digest this document, I will post reactions, but let me start with the first thing that jumps out at me. And this points to the illegitimacy of Jack Smith's entire case. The document is signed as pictured below. There is no mention that Jack Smith and his subordinates are at the U.S. Department of Justice. If you need any better indication that they regard themselves as an extra constitutional fourth branch of government, they are no longer listing their institutional affiliation. He points out they list their address as the building that many DOJ alums call Main Justice. Presumably the name of the building is not used. I can tell you that standard DOJ court filing coming out of Main Justice, because in either variant of the building's name, DOJ would have to use the word justice. Now stop to think why Jack Smith might have done this. It raises questions of whether use of any Justice Department organ to go after a former president of the United States is constitutional and could comport with the Supreme Court's July 1st, 2024 immunity decision in Trump v. United States. There it is. He doesn't even list himself as part of the Department of Justice. What does that tell you? This whole thing is an absolute fraud. How convenient. They unseal this on the same day Kamala's husband gets busted for beating up his ex-girlfriend. Yeah, another distraction. Jack Smith's 165-page motion against Trump's presidential immunity case unsealed. Let's see how MSNBC celebrated.
5 pages. We've got some breaking news we're going to get to now. Jack Smith's election interference case against Donald Trump. Well, the judge in D.C., Tanya Chutkan, just unsealed.
She is overjoyed. Oh, man.
The special counsel's 165-page redacted motion on presidential immunity. Joining us now, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. It is 165 pages. We've had it for all of, I think, 4 minutes. We obviously haven't been able to go through all of it. Still, this was what we thought would be sort of a mini trial. Here is the evidence we have against Donald Trump in regards to what happened in 2020. Is there anything?
So now it's a mini trial. Now we have the evidence. See, this is all about putting it out in the court of public opinion to let the left-wing rabid media tear it apart and create false narratives like you just saw so they can keep creating new headlines.
So far that is jumping out to you now that we didn't know about before today?
Well, Katie, one of the things that I would just point out is that we obviously know who the government thinks Donald Trump's most important co-conspirators are. In this indictment, there is a description of 6 co-conspirators, the majority of whom have been definitively identified before. That having been said, one of the things that pops out to me immediately is how many people here are identified just by P numbers, meaning they're not people alleged to be co-conspirators, but they are people who are alleged witnesses or participants in the event. And there are so many of them that even on page 13, which is as far as I've gotten, there's a reference to P76, meaning there are at least 76 people listed in this description, this detailed recitation of the facts that the government wants Judge Chutkan to see relevant to her immunity determinations that we know are involved here. And many of these people are people who came from the campaign world. That's the other thing that jumps out to me immediately is just the identification of so many people from.
Anyway, MSNBC celebrating. They can't wait to go through it all. And let's see, we got Fox anchor Neil Cavuto. He was getting some crap today over this whole thing. Let's see.
On a busy news day, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. Prosecutors right now are offering a redacted version of special counsel Jack Smith's filing. That had to be made public today. It was in this newly unsealed court paper. We're learning that former President Trump resorted to crimes in a bid to cling to power after the 2020 election. We don't know much more than that. A lot of this stuff was going to be coming out anyway. We're going to be getting the latest on that and a legal to look at what is being revealed here. And whether it's giving us any information, anything we don't know. The timing of this, of course, a little more than about 5 weeks before the general election.
So, folks, make sure your ears and eyes are open these next couple of weeks. Remember what Tucker Carlson said? We did that report. He said, make sure your spidey senses are tuned. Because the level of lies and disinformation and misinformation that's going to be coming at you from the mainstream media, from the Kamala Harris campaign, it is going to be like a meteor shower. So you guys need to make sure you have your discernment and you can see through these lies. And we're going to do our very best to help you to navigate through these next couple of weeks. This is just the beginning of October. And we've got a port strike. We've got a natural disaster. We've got this. It's only going to intensify over these next several weeks. And we're going to do our best, like I said, to guide you through this. So Jack Smith's October surprise, it's not just an attack on Trump. It is a calculated move to sway the upcoming election. This 165-page motion, conveniently released just weeks before Americans head to the polls, is a blatant attempt to manipulate public opinion. It's clear the Biden-Harris DOJ is pulling out all the stops, weaponizing the justice system to influence the election's outcome. But will the American people, will you see through this transparent ploy? I want to hear from you. How do you think this so-called October surprise will impact voter sentiment overall? Do you believe it will backfire on the Democrats? Comment below.